A few months back, one of my favourite YouTubers, the Tim Traveller, made a video where he tried to make it look like he had travelled around the world without ever leaving Paris, which he couldn't, due to COVID-related travel restrictions. Now, Tim has challenged his viewers to do the same thing, to make it look like you've travelled somewhere far away without ever leaving your local area. So, my name is Charlie, I live in Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK, and this is my International Staycation. My first and perhaps most obvious point of call on my trip was Chinatown, which I came to because of one specific landmark, this beautiful Chinese arch. The arch was built in 2004, and if you look closely, you can actually see local scenes and landmarks depicted in the artwork. So, I snapped my first photo, and grabbed a selfie with a very handsome lion for good measure. Next, I decided to take a trip to Italy, via Jesmond, which is an area just to the north of Newcastle city centre. I came to this leafy suburb to find St George's Parish Church, whose lovely big bell tower has always reminded me a bit of the Campanile di San Marco in Venice, at least a much grimier version of it. In any case, it looks Italian enough for me. But for an even more authentic piece of Italy, I travelled to the quiet residential area of Benwell, where, if you know where you're looking, tucked away among the houses, you can find this, a real Roman temple. This street sits next to where the famous Hadrian's Wall used to run, and archaeologists believe the temple was built around 180 AD. The head of a sandstone statue was found on the site, and altar inscriptions led archaeologists to conclude that this was a representation of the god Antennakiticus, who was most likely a Roman deity native to Britain. You can see the head and the original altars from the site on display in the Great North Museum in the city. With this, I concluded my visit to Italy. For the next stop on my world tour, I came down to the quayside, for that bridge right there. This, of course, is the famous Tyne Bridge, and it isn't hard to see why it gets compared to a certain bridge in Sydney, Australia. In fact, there's some debate about which of the two is the original. But while the Tyne Bridge opened first, work on the Sydney Harbour Bridge actually began years earlier. And furthermore, it's believed that both bridges were actually inspired by the Hellgate Bridge in New York, which was built decades earlier. The sky in Newcastle on the day of my trip was probably a bit too grey to look like Australia, but that wasn't anything a handy Instagram filter can't fix. Finally, I decided to come to Central Station to visit the US of A. Just down the road from here, next to the Centre for Life, is the most American place in all of Newcastle. Should be around here somewhere. Oh yeah, I see it. Boom. And that's the end of my international staycation. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks Tim for setting this brilliant challenge. I loved trying to visit as many different countries as I could without leaving my hometown. And, of course, the best part of that was that I got to travel the world without ever being more than a mile away from a Greggs. Speaking of which, I'm starving. Thanks.